We've got another good event here. We've almost got 110 people here today, and it just seems every luncheon we get a great turnout. So thank you for that. We can't do that without our sponsors, and our lunch sponsor today is Coastal Community Credit Union. And I'm going to ask Frank to come up here shortly just to give us a little spiel here about the credit union. Our annual sponsors, we have Fortis BC, Grant Thornton, and CBRE. So thank you very much to all three of you for being our annual sponsors. We have several of our board members here today. And before I list them off, I'd like to welcome a new board member who is coming on board, and that is Justin Faluk from Townline. So Justin, thanks very much for agreeing to come on board. Other board members, we have Keith Barban, Cam Cooper, Kent Fullerton, Sam Ganon, Dejan Nastani, Sarah Pope, Ross Tuck, Kathy, and our Executive Director, Kathy Hogan, and Tanya, who is make sure that all these things run very smoothly. And also we have Anna Ray. Anna, sorry, I missed you there on the first round. We have several upcoming events. On March the 7th, we have the Legends. It'll be a very interesting discussion with some of the developers who really helped build the regional district. So please come out and hear them. On Monday, April the 11th, we have Vancouver developers investing in the capital region. Why do they do it? So we've got a great lineup of Vancouver groups coming over to give a little talk on that. We also have our major golf tournament coming up on Thursday, May the 12th. And the theme, as I mentioned last time, the Big Kahuna Luau. So get out those Hawaiian shirts and look forward to seeing you all there. And on Thursday, June the 23rd, we've got the local development tour for West Shore. And the invites will be coming out for that in probably a month's time or so. So when you see it, please book up. We haven't been out there for a long time to do a tour, so it'll be very interesting to see what's happening out there. So I'd like to invite Frank Banani, Senior Business Relationship Manager at the Coastal Community Credit Union. Frank. Frank's a long way back there, so...
How you guys doing? Got a couple of nice words to say about everybody in the room before we start. Good looking crew. Good afternoon, members and guests. My name is Frank Banani. As Dave mentioned, I'm the Senior Business Relationship Manager with Coastal Community Credit Union for the South Island. Coastal Community is a proud member of UDI, and I'm here with my colleague, Bobby Moretti. She's the Manager of Business Services. There she is, way over there by the window. We are honored to sponsor today's luncheon with a great topic that we're all looking forward to hearing about. It's a pleasure to be in the company of like-minded individuals who are committed to the growth and development of our island and whose passion, dedication, and business acumen in helping to ensure the long-term prosperity of our community. For those of you who are not familiar with Coastal Community Credit Union, we've been around since 1946. We have 23 locations and are the largest island-based credit union. Our history runs deep within our communities we service, as we have roots from the north in Port Hardy, and are hoping to do the same with our expansion into the South Island. We opened our first branch in Langford in May of last year at 752 Goldstream Avenue. We expanded into a second location in December at 762 4th Street. We offer commercial and retail banking, as well as personal and business insurance and private wealth management. In a very relaxed and welcoming atmosphere. Lastly, we are hosting an open house at our 4th Street location the week of February 29th to March 4th. So I encourage all of you to drop by and say hi. As you notice on the tables you have, there's a few propaganda about what we do and how great we are and why you should be dealing with us, as well as a colorful piggy bank with a whole bunch of money in it. Please take those piggy banks with you. Arm wrestle. You can toss a coin. You can do whatever you want, but please take them with you because we don't want to take them back with us. They're too heavy. And there's money in it, so you don't want to leave money on the table. Again, thank you for your time and enjoy the lunch.
Frank, thanks very much. It's great, having sponsors. They actually bring money for all the participants here, so this is fantastic. I'd like to just introduce our guest speakers for the day. We are privileged to have a group from BC Transit as well as the Ministry of Transportation. It's nice to get them both into the same room and here because it's very important that they work together, and now we can hear the story together. I'd like to just first of all, just James Wadsworth is the Planning Works Lead with BC Transit. He's been a transit planner for 10 years. He's focused on Vancouver Island and lives here in Victoria. So he's a hands-on guy, knows the transportation and transit issues here. From the Ministry of Transportation, we have Janelle Irwin and David Edgar. Janelle is the district manager, has been with the Ministry of Transportation for 13 years, and is responsible for transportation and infrastructure. She was telling me at lunch that she's very busy right now, having a lot of grants being submitted to the federal government, and hopefully we'll see some of that federal money flow this way to improve our roads and services. David has been a planning engineer with the ministry for 25 years and is really in charge of the movement of goods and services and make sure everything rolls smoothly. So with that introduction, please come on up. We're going to hear from the Ministry of Transportation first and then BC Transit second. Thank you very much.
So many people may remember last summer in July of 2015, our minister was on site at the intersection of Highway 1 and Mackenzie alongside the federal government, and we announced a joint partnership, an $85 million project to replace this intersection with an interchange on Highway 1. $85 million, about 52.4 of that is coming from the province, with the remainder coming from the federal government. There's been a lot of questions of, with the change in government, is there still sort of a commitment to this project? And we're definitely comfortable that that commitment is there, so that's a great thing. With that in mind, this project has been a priority for folks in the region. I'm sure everybody in this room has had an opportunity, be it daily or throughout the week or their travels, to travel through the intersection. In 2014, I traveled up and down Vancouver Island with our parliamentary secretary, Jordan Sturdy. And in that consultation, what we heard, even all the way to the tip to Port Hardy, is that something needed to be done at the intersection of Highway 1 and Mackenzie. So with that, it came out as a priority in BC on the Move, which was our 10-year transportation plan. A bit of a roadmap in the sense of where are we going for transportation on Vancouver Island, as well as across the province. So as you leave, there's copies of our 10-year transportation plan. Feel free to take some. It's also available online, but we thought we'd just bring a few copies in case folks are interested. All right, Kathy, it's beyond me. Maybe I'll leave you in charge. Perfect. So as I said, most people have had an opportunity to go through the intersection. There's sort of three main issues that come to the top of the table when we think about this intersection. Safety. This intersection has about 300 crashes over the course of a 5-year period. It's got a safety history that's about 2.5 times higher than the provincial average. So certainly there's a real opportunity with this project to increase safety. Congestion, again, it's a very congested intersection, and there's a need to move goods and people safely. That's our vision as the Ministry of Transportation. And again, reliability. We want folks who are commuting, who are visiting, who are delivering goods and services to be able to know they know how long their commute is going to take. They have that sense of reliability on the corridor. So that's what we wanted to do with this project. So lots of considerations when we think about this project. Obviously, we're in a fairly tight environment here and different things we needed to keep in mind. So this is just a bit of a map and an overview of our project. Right about there is the intersection. So in this project right here, we have Cuthbert Homes Park. And we know that the park has some strong interest in the community, and we know that the environment is very important to the community, it's very important to the ministry. So certainly that was a big consideration as we developed our project here. Up over in this quadrant here, we have 2 schools. So certainly our project team had to keep in mind, what is the impact of these schools and properties as we develop a footprint for an interchange here. Obviously, there's a lot of residential aspects of the area, so we wanted to be mindful of the impact on the community and what that meant. We wanted to make sure that there was, we know there's the Galloping Goose corridor that's running on the north side of the intersection. So we wanted to make sure that there was that continuity in the Galloping Goose corridor, and even look for opportunities to improve the existing pedestrian and cycling infrastructure that was out there. Some things that our team was keeping in mind is, again, because of the tight environment, limiting the property impacts. Obviously, we want to minimize the footprint and have the least impact that we can on folks. So again, one of the objectives of our team as we were looking at this. Last but not least, being mindful of the traditional lands of both the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations and working with them throughout the process. So lots of different aspects that we were considering along the way as we developed the scope. So just to give folks a quick overview, in the inbound direction, we have roughly 1/3 of the traffic when it gets to the intersection. It's actually coming off of Highway 1, making that left turn and heading onto the peninsula, be it the university, be it the ferries, or just anywhere else in the peninsula. So we lose about 1/3 of the traffic there. As we get south of the intersection, about 15%, 17% peels off down Burnside and out into the community. So just giving a sense of some of the traffic volume. So we knew going into the project that really accommodating that left turn movement from the highway onto Mackenzie was going to be a very important consideration for the project. In the outbound period, again, what we're seeing is that same traffic that's heading up the peninsula is then kind of coming back down Mackenzie and wanting to get onto the highway. So we needed to develop a scope of a project that was able to accommodate those sort of time of day movements along the way. I'm going to zip past these because not everyone in the room is a traffic engineer, really interested in the details. So folks will know, or hopefully folks know, that in November, on November 17th in 2015, we actually went to our first round of public open house. So I'll just walk you folks through what we brought forward to that early engagement process. So the first option we brought forward was actually a diamond interchange showing the Trans-Canada Highway going under. So what it did is it provided great separation for, right here, the Galloping Goose. Question of whether that would go over or under was still sort of in process and is still in process with our engineers from a technical perspective. But what it does show is that, the highway is actually going under, and you've got Mackenzie and Admirals roughly staying on the same grade they are today, with the highway going underneath. The second option that we brought forward was what we call a partial cloverleaf, or you may hear the term parklow. So what we have is, in order to accommodate that really heavy left turn movement, there's another way we can do that. Instead of doing a tight diamond interchange, we can do what's called a partial cloverleaf. So traffic wanting to come down the highway and get onto Mackenzie can come off, can loop around, and head up the peninsula. So the difference in this option is folks don't actually need to stop at a traffic signal, wait for a green light, and make that left turn. From an operational perspective, our team certainly showed from a traffic modeling perspective, both of the options operate well for that left turn movement. The difference in this option is it's one less light for people coming down the highway heading up the peninsula. So that was sort of a differentiation between the two options. And the impact of this option is it does have a bigger footprint on Cuthbert Homes Park. In this option as well, the Trans-Canada Highway is going under, with Mackenzie and Admiral staying at that same sort of grade that you would see today. So essentially just a structure bridging those two roads. So our third option was a tight diamond interchange as well, and it was looking at the opportunity for the highway to go over. So when we came to our open house in November, our team was still doing some geotechnical evaluations, trying to figure out what's feasible, what can we build, how quickly can we build it, what does it mean from a preload perspective. So this option we took a look at from that perspective. Some of the impacts from this option that we looked at was It could be visually more attractive to folks, or it could be less attractive to folks. It kind of depends on your perspective on it. The noise implications from something a little bit higher may have a more sort of compounding impact on folks in the community. But certainly it was another option that our team was exploring, making sure that we could come up with a constructible option from a technical perspective. So to get to our open house in November and to, as we continue along the way, there's been a lot of consultation along the way. We know that this project is important to the community in the Capital Regional District, and we know that folks have a lot of ideas and good ideas out there. I mean, we're getting a lot of great feedback that we're able to incorporate and weave into the progress and really help refine what's going to be a good project at the end of the day. So let's list some of the folks we've been consulting with along the way. I'm not going to list them off, but certainly there's 4 community associations in the area that we've been working closely with. We've developed a stakeholder liaison group that has local governments, all the local governments in the area, the Chamber of Commerce, the Cycling Coalition, RCMP, the school district, ambulance, the First Nations, lots of different folks represented on that committee. Again, just ensuring that we really get that fulsome perspective on the project to make sure at the end of the day we've really hit it out of the park with a good project. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Dave, who's going to talk about our engagement to date and where we're going from here.
Sometimes I wander around, so I like this. It was great. The participation at the open house, the feedback online has just been terrific. I was just talking with a colleague in Vancouver, and you know, they get people out to their open houses, they get people involved, but not like we see in the regional district here. There's just tremendous participation here, so it's great. On the downside, it takes a long time to go through all the feedback, but still enjoyable. There's the feedback, there's a consultation report. It's available here if you want a hard copy, and it's certainly online, and you can go through it all, but we just want to touch on a few of the things today that we were hearing, just to give you some flavor of that feedback. Certainly we were hearing a lot of interest in the first 2 options, option 1 and option 2. Very, very small interest in option 3 with the highway going over. People just didn't really warm up to that option. Certainly there's some technical challenges with it. So that was kind of interesting to hear that feedback. Of these 2, 1 and 2, there was a stronger interest in the Parklow, option 2, from the public. Certainly one of the primary things we were hearing was about congestion. People want us to address congestion and to address it fully. So whether that's looking broadly, make sure we look at Tillicum. How's that going to operate down at Tillicum in the Trans-Canada? Up at Burnside Mackenzie, how's that going to operate? Or just into the future to make sure we build a robust solution that will serve the region well into decades into the future. Oh, and certainly a strong message from many people who just wrote very large on their feedback, just get on with it. So we'll take that to heart. In terms of some of the ideas that people gave us, some of them were, very concrete ideas that we could use to improve the design. So, for example, some folks thought that we should think about having a second right turn here, have a double right turn going down Mackenzie onto the Trans-Canada, and different ideas about what we might do here. They could be small ideas about, adding a left turn or right turn or something, or even to the extreme of to do a second interchange at that location to deal with some of the issues. Other ideas put forward were an on-ramp down here at Burnside. There are lots of people who go under the highway on interurban or Burnside, whichever it's called right there, and take the road up Burnside up to make the left, fight their way onto Mackenzie, and then onto the Trans-Canada. I'm sure none of those folks are here today, but so for some of those, they look at this obvious spot here where perhaps we could have an on-ramp coming onto the highway. So that's a thought, and certainly one that our team's exploring along with many other ideas, and we'll be coming back at the next round of open houses with ideas that have merit there. Certainly lots of feedback on the park. You know, it's anytime you're thinking about touching a park, it's a sensitive area, and we need to recognize that and work through those issues. It was interesting, while there's concerns over the park, there was also a fair bit of feedback that people saw it as an opportunity to improve the area, that the area next to the highway was an area that you know, wasn't a great part of the park. It was a chance for sort of litter to collect, and just wanted to see that perhaps we can use this opportunity to improve that area of the park, regardless of what the option is, whether it's the diamond option or the park low, that we can improve that area. So we've been, yeah, I'll go to the next slide. Yeah, certainly there's a lot of opportunities there. We've been working closely with the District of Saanich that manages the Cuthbert Homes Park. We'll certainly be looking at things like exchanging some of our right-of-way for the lands that we'll need out of the park, and into many details about how to mitigate drainage, for example. I think we can vastly improve what we do today, so I'm looking forward to that. And certainly we can look at plantings and things to make the area much better. So we'll work through that with Saanich. That's an ongoing process. Certainly we're hearing too from people about, you know, they're just afraid the ministry will be too car-centric. Make sure we're thinking about the other modes, thinking about transit, thinking about cycling, thinking about walking, and yeah, lots of good ideas on that. Certainly also protecting for the future for LRT, that we keep that option open. We don't do anything that precludes us from doing that in the future. So, yeah, some interesting ideas, and so we're working through the different ideas that have come back and refining our design. And this is just a couple of examples of things we're considering right now. So for example, in the materials that were shown at the first open house, we had the Galloping Goose close to the highway here. And now we're looking at an alternate arrangement, moving it a little bit farther up Mackenzie. And we do that for various reasons. One is simply cost. We have a long structure here. We can go to a shorter structure up here. Another reason is for vehicles coming down the highway, their view of this intersection is obscured by the structure. And so by moving it up here, we can improve that situation. So there's a number of reasons to look at moving it, and we're going through that now. As well, we're hearing from the public that they wanted to see more detail around those connections. Certainly, you know, at the beginning, when you've got three options on the table, we're showing a very high level, and it's meant to be that, and just to try and get into those three options, get thinking about them. But there's a need to drill down, and the public remind us of that, down into that detail, and they want to see the detail around how do I get from my home onto transit? How do I walk from A to B? So we'll take that to heart, and we'll bring back more details at this next round. Certainly, here's another one. We have the structure out here that was replacing the current structure that's around this area right now, ped and cycling structure. We're looking at moving that closer to the vehicle structure to make it more convenient for all users to utilize that, rather than going through the intersections here. Transit, our good friends at Transit. Transit, there's a number of things that perhaps I don't think we highlighted well enough at the first open house. We want to make sure we do that this next round. Bus on shoulder is part of the concept, regardless of what interchange configuration is chosen. We'll have the bus on shoulder. So any congestion, buses are able to move onto the shoulder, get around that congestion through the project. Something we've done very successfully elsewhere in the province, and looking forward to doing that here. Certainly, I've already spoken about the need to ensure we have a corridor for LRT for the future, and we'll take care of that. And I'll just go to the next slide to talk about the bus stops. Yeah, just zooming in a bit. So we're working with BC Transit on these kind of details about where the bus stops are, what configuration they'll be, how the public will access them, and just work through all that detail. Certainly we heard a lot of neighborhood concerns. Working with the community association has been very valuable to get that, to get on through them. One of the ones was certainly Admiral's Road, to ensure that through the project we can certainly not make the situation any worse and look at ways to try and make it better, to bring speeds down on Admiral's and just make that a more community-friendly sort of road. So we're working through that. Certainly the park I've already touched on. Local streets, I think anybody who lives in the area now knows that there's a lot of shortcutting on streets like Marigold, and this project will absolutely improve that situation. As the traffic flows better on Mackenzie, you won't get the number of people taking those routes trying to find the shortest way home. Very understandable, and the project will address those. This is just my little sketch. That's why they won't let me be a designer. I have to stay in planning. They give me the colored markers and that's all they'll let me use. So just a little indication. I know people are quite curious about how we'll do construction, and the good news is the ministry's done a lot of construction and they're good at it. So it's good that way. In this, the general scheme is, that we'll probably end up doing the Galloping Goose first, getting that out of the way, getting that grade separation, and keeping the Goose in operation the entire time, but certainly keeping those pedestrians and cyclists out of the construction area. So that's probably what we'll be working on first. Then moving the traffic. Typically on these projects, often we'll build the ramps first, do a little bit of a detour here, and get the traffic off the Trans-Canada in this section. So that way we're free to work in this area, because all the traffic will be going on the ramps. Once the traffic's out of the way, then we're able to not only, dig this down to get the highway under, but also to construct the new structure over here. So, I think it'll go well. It's a tried and true construction method that we'll be using. Just in terms of the project schedule, you can kind of see where we are here in terms of the functional design. We went through that engagement period, working through more detailed design, but at the same time taking all this engagement, all the things that we heard, and trying to utilize that in the design, trying to make it better. So a lot of times people are thinking, oh, you want to pick between one option and the other option. And that's true. Ultimately, we have to have a design that we're going to build. But within all those options, there's a lot of details and a lot of detailed feedback that's really useful for us. And as I don't know if we've talked about it here, because we've talked about this project in too many forums, but we're hoping that we're anticipating being in construction, late in this year, and having the project done and open, and all of you good folks driving on it in late 2018. Sure.
So I know we talked a lot about our second round of engagement. I realize we haven't invited everyone in the room. So we do have an upcoming open house. It is on February 24th, next Wednesday. It's going to be at the same venue we had last time. It's really close to the intersection, which draws a lot of folks who are commuters and draws a lot of folks from the local community. Again, as Dave said, we had 610 people show up last time, so we're anticipating a big turnout and really looking forward to that valuable feedback we get. With that, from there, we're going to take a 3-4 weeks, as long as it takes realistically. It may take months to go through that fulsome feedback that we get at this next round of engagement and see where do we go from here in terms of ultimately making a decision and putting our pens to paper, getting this designed and getting our shovels in the ground by the end of 2016. So we have a lofty road ahead of us, but certainly with the kind of feedback we're getting, we're setting ourselves up well to deliver a great project. So if anyone has any questions, here's that opportunity. If anyone wants to look at more information on the project, we actually have a dedicated project website. All our materials are on there, from the open house materials, our design concepts. When we have our next round of open house, same thing, the design materials will go up live on there as well. So with that, I will open it up for questions.
Should we go to BC Transit first?
Oh, sure, sorry. We'll go to James Wadsworth instead.
We'll do the questions.
Sure, that sounds good.
All right, so we're going to talk about developing rapid transit between Victoria and the West Shore. Here's a few transit fun facts for you. So the Victoria Regional Transit System is the second largest transit system in British Columbia. We carry over 100,000 people every weekday, so we're pretty busy here. And on Douglas Street, we carry 40% of people traveling on Douglas Street are in a bus at peak times. We're only 3% of the traffic, but we're carrying 40% of the people. So when you're thinking about how you allocate road space, I think we could use a little bit more space than we have right now. And here's some more fun facts for you. Two out of 3 people within the city are traveling from other municipalities each day. And one thing that we know is it's a long enough distance that the way they're most likely going to get to the city of Victoria is by driving their car or by taking the bus, because these are distances that the average person is not likely to walk or cycle. And we also know that in the future that we're going to see a 40% increase in the number of trips. And the other thing that we know is that traffic congestion is a major issue. But I think Janelle and Dave might have just solved it. I'm not sure. For a little bit anyway. But what we've done in Victoria is we have a transit future plan that we've worked with local governments on. It's a 25-year plan for transit in the region. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to double ridership over that time. And right now we've got a transit system where every bus we call just a bus route, and it all converges. A lot of it is designed on coming right downtown to downtown Victoria. And we're trying to streamline that in the future with introducing some rapid transit services on a few of those corridors and frequent transit services on our major corridors. And so by doing these things, we're hoping to double the number of people that are taking transit. And here's just a few more details on it. We're looking at a rapid transit line to the West Shore, of course, and we've also looking at rapid bus lines that connect Esquimalt up through downtown Victoria to UVic, and a rapid bus line on Mackenzie, and a rapid bus line out to the West Shore. And then we take our other services, instead of sending them all downtown, we'd start to make more of a grid system out of it. So we'd have crosstown routes, and you'd come out to Douglas and make a transfer there. And north of that, at Uptown, we'd build a transit exchange, and it would act like a hub. So routes from the north would come in just like a spoke on a bicycle wheel. And right now we're holding some properties, and the ministry's holding some properties that we could use as a future exchange. We'd have to work with Saanich on how that would be configured in this area. And it's also going to take some major investments in the highway and on local roads to make access and egress from that site work. And we've also done a lot of work through looking at a rapid transit line to the West Shore. In 2010, we did a study that identified this as the preferred rapid transit corridor connecting downtown Victoria with the West Shore. And of course, it's on Douglas Street out to where we talked about at Uptown there, and then parallels the highway, and then Island Highway, and then on possibly in the future all the way out to West Hills. And this aligns with local land use plans that we've seen in Langford, Colwood, Saanich, and Victoria. We've made some progress to date in terms of planning. I think Janelle and Dave covered what's happening with bus on shoulder lanes out in the West Shore, but we've been working closely with the City of Victoria on introducing bus lanes here. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And also we're looking with the ministry at adding bus lanes between Tolney and Uptown which is part of Douglas Street, which is under their jurisdiction. So these were the goals that we had for the rapid transit project. We're trying to improve the on-time performance of our transit system right now. Bus routes, really, their travel times are very variable. Sometimes it can take them 15 minutes to go down Douglas Street, and sometimes it can take them 23 minutes, and that's a really hard thing to try and schedule and ensure that you're using the resources well. We're hoping to improve travel times. And we talked about the mode share gains we're trying to get and aligning with future land use plans. Today it takes from the West Shore an additional 20 minutes for people to get in by bus than it does to car. We're hoping if we're introducing bus lanes that we can even up that time, so it should take about the same amount of time. And if we were to look at rapid transit from the West Shore in the future, we're hoping the transit travel times are going to be better than auto times, and those are all things that make it more likely that people are going to get out of their cars and get into a transit bus. Other communities that have done this have seen, within the first couple of years, a 30% shift in growth in transit ridership on bus rapid transit systems. And here's a few fun facts about Douglas Street. It's been identified in all local government plans as the corridor for future rapid transit. 35% of the employment in the region is along this corridor. So when you're thinking about where to make investments in transit, it's along this corridor. We touched on that 40% number of people traveling in a bus, but that's 18 to 20,000 people a day are moving on the corridor in transit. So that's a lot of people. And if we were to implement bus lanes on this entire corridor, that could save us up to four minutes, which 4 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but it could be up to 5 buses and the hours associated. And those are things that we can just put back into more service to help move people around. Now, the long-term plan was for LRT, but local government, being the Commission and Victoria and Sandwich Council, asked us, well, what can we do now to move forward? And so that's how we got into looking at bus lanes. But we looked at everything like coordinating the signals better. We have some buses that talk to the intersections and get a green light faster. And we're looking at everything from bus lanes to fully segregated right-of-ways. But we did some analysis, and it seemed the most cost-effective thing to do was to look at implementing bus lanes. And so that is where we're at today. We've implemented bus lanes on Douglas Street south of Hillside between Fisgard, up down to Fisgard. And then in 2015, we implemented bus lanes north of Hillside up to Tulmy. And right now we're working with the city on options for implementing a southbound lane, and we're hoping to look at that this year. I don't have it on this slide, but as I mentioned, we're also working with the ministry to the north, and it looks like we might be able to look at bus lanes there pretty soon too. But once complete, we're hoping to have our bus stops aligned with where we'd like to have our rapid transit stations. We're trying to move forward with an exchange at Uptown, and we're taking our bus services that we now have on Blanchard and moving them over onto Douglas to take advantage of the bus lanes. These travel time savings we're hoping to have for customers. We're hoping to take those back and put them into more trips on the corridor. And we mentioned the phase 3 that we're looking at with the ministry. To start off at Uptown, we're working with the developer there who's going to allow us to have a bus zone on the Cary Road side of by Whole Foods. That will be helpful. We can make some changes to the transit network there that will make it easier for people to get on transit, but also to route out to the peninsula. We've spoken about the Mackenzie interchange bus on shoulder lanes, but we're also working with the city of Colwood. There's an opportunity with development there to capture a bit of a bus lane in front of the development there at Four Corners. Other things that we've done, we tried to rebrand our network and our public information. We have an online trip planner now. We try to highlight our corridors that have frequent transit services in future rapid bus services. We're doing that with our signage. If you're to look on some of the corridors right now, we're starting to show our information at our bus stops like this. Other things that we'd like to do coming up are we'd like to start to make our bus stops look more like bus stations. These are a couple pictures of the bus stations that we have in Kelowna, where we've successfully implemented a rapid bus network there. They're of a higher quality. The boarding on the sidewalk is more level than our existing ones. We also have real-time information, so it counts down when the next bus is coming. So those are all things that we're looking at in the region here. And I'd like to say thank you, and then I'll turn it over to Dave for questions.
Thanks very much, James. We've got time for a few questions, and please bring them on. Yes.
My name is Rob Wixon. I'm president of Gorge-Tilican Community Association. I'm also an economist by trade. The Gorge-Tilican Community Association is going to be the most impacted community in this whole project. It is the #1 place for us to be considered. This intersection has been on our radar for 25 years. We understand what needs to happen at this intersection. It's about moving people through the intersection efficiently. We also identify the 3 different things that really need to be done. One is, how do we get the cars out of town? There's 35,000 from one direction, or 35,000 per day on average going out of town. So that's the first fix. The second fix is the traffic that wants to connect to Highway 17 and to the rest of Sanders using Mackenzie. Those 2 pieces alone take almost 60,000 vehicle movements. You take them out of the intersection, then what happens to the intersection after that? Does it work better? Likely. So what we ask as a community, and I think this is a very important question, is show me the numbers and how these cars are going to save time to their destinations. We have asked for this since the project began. We've not seen one number to say, this is how many cars we're going to move to Tillicum and they're going to stop there and now start leaking through the neighborhood. We've not seen how many cars are going to now move up to Burnside intersection and sit there waiting, idling, as much as they do now. We have not seen any of those values at all. I'm a numbers guy. I'm an economist by trade. I know how to understand numbers. I know how to play with numbers. Where are they?
I'll just pass this over to BC Transit. Sorry. Minister of Transportation, my apologies.
I'd be happy to give it to James.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you a break.
So Rob, as you know, we met with you very recently, and I understand that's very important. I think Dave alluded to the fact that when we came to our first round of open house in November, it really was a bird's eye view. It was the first time that we were bringing forward 3 different options for the public to really delve into and understand what those impacts were. Since that time, certainly we've heard a whole host of feedback from people, including yourself, and certainly those travel times is a reoccurring theme, so it's something that definitely our project team is working on, and we'll certainly be prepared to respond to those questions when we come to the open house next week. We understand the importance to the community of understanding where are the cars going to at the end of the day, and on top of it, we know that the CRD has a transportation model. So we had our consultant do some additional work and take a look at what are the impacts of an interchange to the region from a network perspective. And what we're seeing is sort of the interchange works like a vacuum. It's just sucking traffic back onto the highway because that's where the traffic wants to be. Traffic is trying to find the most efficient ways to get to their place in the western communities, up on the Malahat, anywhere else, and it'll take the path of least resistance. I think people in this room would attest to that. We all have different shortcuts along our route to try to get there most quickly. So as we make the highway more safe, more reliable, decrease the congestion, we're going to draw traffic back onto the highway, which is where it wants to be. But certainly, Rob, we do definitely hear you need that, and we are going to be prepared to provide you that information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I've got one. Are these projects financially approved by the provincial government at this time?
Our project, our $85 million project for the Mackenzie Interchange project.
I'll just pass it over.
Sure. I was trying to use my loud voice there, but absolutely. Our $85 million project, our budget of $52.4 million is certainly approved, and as I say, we do have agreements in principle, which is what we need from the federal government. after that change in sort of the election. So we're certainly comfortable that we have approval to move forward with this very important project.
Another question. If you get federal money coming through, where would that money be spent? What sort of projects have you got in mind?
I think there's a whole host of projects across the province. So we have a whole department that's focused on infrastructure in the sense of where are we going to be investing. They're liaising with the federal government to figure out what is our priorities, what are the regional priorities. So I can't say we have a list right now where we're going to go, but certainly that is something we do as an organization, is evaluate where do we go next.
Thank you. And from BC Transit, approval of the Douglas Corridor, is that financially approved or?
Right now on the Douglas Corridor, 3 phases are complete and paid for. The 4th phase is in the commission, the local government's budget for this year, but it's still subject to approval.
Thank you. Other questions? This is your chance. Seeing none, I'm going to say thank you very much to our guests for coming and giving us the background today on from a BC Transit and Ministry of Transportation perspective. Very much appreciated. I feel UDI, we're very special to be able to get you to come here and give us our own personal talk. And thank you to all of you for coming and attending today, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you very much.